For more awesome content, head to ystech.org, link in the description. Building a computer right now is really not a good idea, considering that price to performance is really horrible. I've outlined this in my previous build for New Zealand, stating that you shouldn't build a computer right now. I still stand by that statement, and you shouldn't really build a computer right now. However, it looks like extraordinary high prices are going to continue on into 2022. So who knows right now when prices are going to fall. It might be at the end of this year or even into next year. So if you really need to build a computer right now and just cannot wait, this is probably one of the better brand new builds options for your money in a very expensive market. Some notes just before we start. The secondhand market is out of control at the moment, with examples of RX 580 selling for more than $450 on TradeMe. Now there's nothing wrong with this, it's just due to the market conditions and what we're facing right now. To counteract this a little bit, you can check out my video on how to get PC parts on special or for deals in New Zealand. So this video will teach you about some of the things I use in order to get a little bit of a better price on PC parts in New Zealand or any electronics for that matter. And it'll help you in the current climate and market conditions. It's also worth mentioning that other parts besides CPUs and GPUs like RAM have also increased in price, with notes that SSD prices may also rise in the near future. So let's get started with this build. So here it is. So it comes all up about 1,563 depending on what options you go with. I will discuss the options for each of these parts right now. So let's head over straight in the build. So first off, we'll start off with the CPU, and I've gone with an Intel build for this video. The reason I've gone with Intel is because the i5-10400F has a decent gaming performance for its price. Although the i5 provides less performance in some instances and no upgrade part compared to its competitor in New Zealand, the Ryzen 5 3600, it's outright much more cheaper, as we can see here. The Ryzen 5 3600, in my opinion, is a better CPU overall, but at current prices at over $320 New Zealand, nearing $350 New Zealand, I just can't justify it anymore for a budget build. This is even with the future upgrade benefits from AMD on their motherboards. For a limited amount of time as well, you could also purchase the Ryzen 5 3500X, which was also available in New Zealand for a limited time. But unfortunately, they've run out of stock. It was also a decent option compared to the Ryzen 5 3600 if you really wanted to go with AMD, which personally I would have gone for this CPU. There's also a worthy competitor of the i5-10400F. So this one is its new, little brother, I guess. It's the i5-11400F, and it's at about $250 New Zealand. This is a decent price, considering that it's a little bit faster in some instances, and if you can stretch the budget only about $30, I would definitely try and take something like this, considering how much of a performance jump it is in some applications. Both are great options, but personally I would pick the i5-11400F and over the 10400F in the long run, considering the price difference is only about $30. Now to the motherboard. So next is the motherboard, and I've gone with the Asus Prime H510M-E, which is also a micro ATX board with 2 slots for RAM, PCIe 4.0, and an RGB header. I just read that off their website. Anyways, this motherboard is quite a decent option for right now, considering that this range of boards were about $140 New Zealand not so long ago, so about a $25 increase till now. But considering that the motherboards you're getting with AMD and the price of the CPU from AMD, the overall option of the Intel build is far more cheaper compared to the AMD option. It also comes with an M.2 slot for some faster storage options, but overall is a great budget option board for the Intel build. Over to the RAM. So for the RAM, I've gone with a 16 gig kit of 2666 megahertz RAM from Kingston at their HyperX range. It's some decent RAM I've personally used, and personally use. I've used a 2400 megahertz 16 gig kit. Well, it was 2 kits of 4 gigs, but besides the point, it's 16 gigs total in my build that I have right now. It's a decent kit, and I've personally got my 2400 megahertz one to overclock to 2666 megahertz, which isn't too bad. It can't really push much past that, but I mean, anyways, in this build, you're unlikely to be overclocking at all. You're just looking to build a gaming computer, I assume. And anyways, this CL16 RAM would probably not be that great for overclocking in any case. But anyways, it's one of the cheaper kits for 16 gigs right now found. And there's also another option, which I'd probably prefer you guys to go with, considering that it's only about a $10 difference. It's the 3200 megahertz version of it. So it's about $10 more, as you can see. It's $157 or $159 and is much faster. The only thing that I'm not sure of is the RAM speed limit on the Intel CPUs. I'm not really sure if that still exists or not. I believe on the i5-10400F it still is a thing, considering it's the CPU that had it. I'm pretty sure it limits it to 2666, but don't quote me on that. I can't exactly remember. And I'm not sure on the 11400F if it still has that limitation or not. But in any case, it's a $10 difference, and in any case, it will run at the lower speed, even if you have higher speed RAM. So it's not really an issue, and considering it's 3200, you could be future-proof for future builds. If you pull this out and put it in another build or something like that, I'd probably go with this, considering it's only about $10 more. I will have to say though, for a similar price last year, about $150, you could actually get 3200 for 16 gig 3200 for about $150, the RGB version, and now they look about over $165, as you can see here. If you go back in the price history, you can actually see the price difference here. So kind of sad, but you know, it is what it is for now. Over to the storage. So for storage, I've gone with the trusty old Samsung 800 series, being the Samsung 870 EVO, which overtook the 860 EVO as its replacement. The 500 gig variant SSD at a great price of under 110 New Zealand dollars. And currently sees $109 from Computer Lounge, $108 from First Wave. This is SATA storage, which is good, but if you can stretch the budget at the same time of building, depending on the price, I would also highly recommend going with the Samsung 970 EVO 500 gig M.2 SSD, which is nice and fast. It's currently at about $132 New Zealand, but can easily come down to about $100 New Zealand. Just keep in mind that SSD prices could creep up soon, so this might be a good time to pick up either the 870 EVO or the 970 EVO. The 970 EVO is also quite a bit faster than the SATA 870 EVO, so it's up to you, but I would probably pick the 970 EVO if I was just building a budget gaming computer for the first time. You can add hard drives or whatever later if you really want to, and you've got the SATA ports free on your motherboard in any case. So finally, to where the bulk of the budget is eaten up, the graphics card. Now I find this really hard to recommend a graphics card like the 1660 Super 6 gig variant for $700. It's absolutely insane that these prices are this high, and especially for the GTX 1660 Super 6 gig model. Knowing that this card was only about $400 not too long ago is really sad. But at the same time, is nothing much you can do. If you have to build a computer, these are the prices you're going to have to pay. The secondhand market is also really stretched, with everyone wanting to cash in on the graphics card prices. So there really aren't too many deals to be found on the secondhand market right now. However, you can probably snag a GTX 1070 for about $480 or less. You can try. These prices keep fluctuating all the time, but I have seen a few go for $480 or less. Or you can even try get a GTX 1080 for less than $600 on TradeMe. Both are older cards, and I do have problems with recommending them, considering that they are a little bit older and can run into more issues. Especially for the prices you're paying on these. These are going for some insane prices. As I said before, even the RX 580s are going for more than $450 New Zealand. and the RX 5600 XT, which was one of my go-to cards alongside the GTX 1660 Super at their lower prices of about $450 to about $600, basically non-existent right now. Please be careful when buying from the secondhand market, as a lot of cheaper cards right now have been heavily mined on and could be waiting to break any day now. There are also some people that apply dangerous overclocks to the graphics cards, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's just something to keep in mind when you're buying secondhand. Just make sure it's definitely not mined on. That's probably one of my main concerns when buying off the secondhand graphics card market. Personally, I would tell you to not build a gaming computer right now. But if I were to build a gaming PC right now, I would try to get a GTX 1060 for less than $200 New Zealand. It is achievable and I have seen it done, although these prices do fluctuate. I'd make sure the card was less than 200 and it wasn't mined or overclocked. And the reason I would do this is because I feel like the GTX 1060 is at a good spot for purchasing under $200, especially in this current market, and that you can actually do it. Combined with this overall build, I would personally think that this is a decent computer. It's sad that the RX 580 is so expensive right now, because through driver updates, I truly believe that the stock GTX 1060 is really behind compared to the RX 580, considering that these were competing cards at the time, and the RX 580 was actually worse than the 1060 at the time. But through driver updates, the RX 580 is actually the superior card compared to the GTX 1060 in some instances. As for the 1660 Super, it's a decent card with an absurd price. Go for it if you really need to, as it's one of the better ones in terms of the inflated prices right now. Keep in mind that it's also a mini card, as it's half the length of a normal card with a single fan. It shouldn't be too much of an issue, but just do keep that in mind. Now to the case. I've gone with the Silverstone Farah R1 ATX mid-tower case. This case comes with one exhaust fan and with a mesh front panel, as you can see here. I would probably advise you to add some more case fans to the front just for more intake air and for better airflow, considering it's a mesh panel, so you'll actually be able to do this. It also comes with a tempered glass side panel, which is also quite nice. It's actually a decent looking case. Just keep in mind as well that the motherboard I picked is a micro ATX board, so make sure you put the right standoffs inside the case when you mount the motherboard inside it. You don't want to cause any shorts. So just keep in mind that it is a ATX case and it will probably have the standoffs in the standard ATX places, but you definitely can mount a micro ATX board in there. Just make sure you put in the right standoffs here so you don't cause any problems for the future. Lastly, we're on to the power supply. So I've gone with the trusty old Silverstone Strider 650 watt 80 plus gold certified modular ATX power supply, and this guy is really good. Now I've used it in a few of my friends' computers and I can definitely vouch for it in terms of their builds. It was nice and easy to work with and I didn't really have any problems with it. Now you could go for a cheaper one and a non-modular one for that, but really in the long run for maintenance and ease of use and for cable management, this modularity really helps a lot. Not to mention it's 650 watt and 80 plus gold certified and at an awesome price of $149. It really hasn't fluctuated too much in price. I think it's quite decent for it. It's definitely one of the cheaper modular power supplies, but the fact that it is 80 plus gold certified does mean a lot. I truly think it's a really good pickup for a power supply. Now, my final thoughts. As I said before, I would tell you not to build a gaming computer right now. But if you really have to do it, brand new, this is what I would go for. It's worth mentioning that there are pre-built PCs right now that are slightly cheaper than building brand new in New Zealand, like this one from PB Tech. Last week it was on special for about $1,499, and I couldn't match the price from building it myself brand new. Again, my plan if I had to build a computer right now would be to get a cheap, non-mined, non-overclocked GTX 1060 for under $200 and use it while the prices are high, and sell it later when prices fall, and again upgrade from there. Another important factor is also that the mid-end AMD and Nvidia cards such as the RTX 3050 and 3050 Ti model should be coming out soon, alongside with the competitor the RX 6600 XT, which will hopefully come out soon. So overall, again, this build comes up to about 1,563 to 1,600 or 650, depending on what parts you go with and what other options I've chosen within the build itself. Again, for the CPU, I'd probably pick something like the 11400F. For the motherboard is fine. I'd probably try go for 3200 megahertz RAM, even though it's $10 more, and it might not even work with the 10400 at its higher rated speed. That's alright, it's only about a $10 difference in my opinion, that's fine. For the storage, I would probably go with the 970 EVO if I was building strictly a gaming computer. Considering it's only about $22 more, I think that's okay for the faster speed M.2 storage. So the 970 EVO for this. For the graphics card, again, I would go for the GTX 1060 if I could for under 200. Not mine, not overclocked. For the case, I would try to add 1 or 2 front panel fans just to make sure there's more intake airflow, and the fact that it has a mesh front panel, you just be able to take advantage of that. Lastly is the power supply, the trusty old Silverstone Strider at $149. I think that's a decent price. So that about sums up the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know it's a bit of a long run, but I did have to say that. The fact that, I mean, you could build a computer now, I'd just probably not recommend it. So these are my options if you really had to do it right now in May. So this is the build for May for New Zealand. Again, thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you go and check out ystech.org for latest posts, reviews, and much more. I'll see you guys there at ystech.org. But other than that, I hope you guys have an awesome day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!